How's it going, guys? It's your boy Kanji FPL and welcome back to the channel. And before we jump into my Game Week 38 team selection video as well as my Game Week 37 team review, I just wanted to give everyone a very sincere thank you. It's been a wonderful, wonderful season. You know, if I'm completely honest, I haven't had the best season in terms of just meeting my overall goals and trying to win my mini league. It hasn't been successful, but I just want to say thank you because I've met so many wonderful people along the way, and that's what's made this journey over this FPL season so great to watch. I've interacted with so many different people from different countries, different ethnicities, different ages, different backgrounds. I've met so many different people, and I've just really enjoyed the journey of this FPL season this year. And that's why I keep coming back to this game. I absolutely love the FPL community. So if you have ever just liked one of my videos or commented or interacted with me, send me a message over Twitter, over DMs, or reply to any of my posts. I'm just thankful for all the support that I've received and to have interacted with so many wonderful people over this time. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. And when I started this season, I did not expect to be at this point over 100 subscribers. That was my goal going in, and to be at like almost 130 plus subscribers now, like that is an absolute dream. So thank you so much for all your support, and I'm hoping that the value that I'm providing to you right now is just going to be the tip of the iceberg, and I'm hoping that things will improve as the years go by. Now, let's rewind the clock to game week 37. This double game week had a lot of variance. Let me just give you two examples. The first would be Malo Gusto, who went out there and picked up a 13-pointer from one game. He gets the assist, he gets the bonus, and then he gets the clean sheet because he stayed on till 60 minutes and then gets subbed off before Brighton scored and they wiped out the clean sheet. And you compare them to assets like Petrovic as well as Cucurella, who actually scored less points even though they played more minutes than Malo Gusto. Like, that's crazy. Another example would be like Kyle Walker as well as Ederson, who pick up 2 clean sheets in the double, and that's great. But then you compare that to what Joshko Gvardiol did, where he picks up the 2 clean sheets as well as 2 attacking returns. Like, wow, I wish I had Gvardiol instead of Kyle Walker myself. I was lucky enough that I had Malo Gusto versus Cucurella, so I had some good variance on one side and then some negative variance on the other side, but that's just how FPL is. You're not going to win every single decision that you make, but you just hope that you put yourself in a position to get lucky more often than not. So that's how things were for me this week. I had a massive, massive green arrow from 230k to 175k. That's a 55k green arrow at this point in the season. It's wonderful. I'm really, really happy with that. So let's jump into my Game Week 37 team review. Using my one free transfer going into Game Week 37, I decided to do Hakuna Matata to Alexander Isak. And you know, that Swahili phrase of Hakuna Matata, it means no worries, right? Well, this time there were a lot of worries because Mateta actually outscored Alexander Isak. Mateta put up a 9-pointer, whereas Isak put up 2 blanks for 4 points. Now, hindsight's 2020. If I knew this is what the results were going to be, I never would have made this transfer, but you can't just look at the results and say that's a bad move. If I think about my decision-making process, I'm very, very happy with it. I really thought Isak could have put up 10 points in this double very easily. Unfortunately, Gordon was the one to pick up the points, and I don't really have him, so that hurt a little bit, but that's okay. I think I can live with the results, and I'm happy with my decision-making process. Let's move on to my defenders, starting off with Malo Gusto, a massive 13-point haul, which I mentioned earlier. Similarly with Kyle Walker, another 13-pointer. So to have 2 massive hauls from defenders from a double game week is really surprising, but happy that I got points from them, which are usually hard to find. And then I went to a Spurs defender. Who would have thought I'd be bringing a Spurs defender? They have such poor defense, and I didn't expect either clean sheet to come in. And of course, both clean sheets got wiped out. But Porro has very strong attacking upside, and that's why I went there, and he delivered with an attacking return. Very, very thankful that I went there, and I'm really excited to have him in my team for Game Week 38, especially in a game week where you expect pretty much goals in every single fixture. So that's what my defense looks like, as well as Pickford at the back with a single game week against Sheffield United at home, a banker fixture. I knew you could always trust Sean Dyche. Even though it wasn't a double game week, I was confident in Pickford to at least pick up some sort of return, and of course he did. Really thankful for Pickford. I wish I had just kept him in my team for longer, and I wish I had just started him in more weeks than I did. Moving on to my mids, I had Cole Palmer and Phil Foden, who actually did not disappoint me at all. They got exactly what I expected, some points, but just slightly less than Haaland. Moving on to Bukayo Saka and Heung-min Son, I'm very, very disappointed in these boys. Arsenal were playing against a Manchester United team, a team that had a completely rotated 11, no Rashford, no Fernandes, and Saka got no returns. Arsenal set up with this ultra defensive formation. They honestly let Manchester United play into the game. Like, I think this is something to really, really think about. It just kind of makes Arsenal defense really, really goated going into next season if this is the tactics that Arteta's going to set up with, because you definitely had the better squad, like 1.5 times better than the Manchester United 11 that was put out that day. But even though they had the better team, they still set up defensively to hit them on the counterattack. And I just think you don't really need to be scared about Arsenal attackers. I think in general, going into Game Week 38, going into next season, like if you go ahead into next season without an Arsenal attacker, I don't think it's the biggest deal. I know that Saka has one of the highest FPL points this season, but in general, it's just like I expected at least 3 or 4 goals. If Liverpool were playing that Manchester United team, they put up around 4 XG in this match. I expected Arsenal to at least do the same thing, but they didn't. So it's just something to really think about going into next season. A blank from Bukayo Saka in a fixture like this when you're my differential, absolute disappointment. But he's been a star for the entire season, so let him get away with it. That's okay. And Heung-min Son, I knew Spurs were not playing well, but he had his moment to get that goal. But he didn't come through in that moment, and that's okay. I know he was a solid differential captaincy shout alongside Foden and Palmer, and I mentioned on my FPL Twitter space as well as on my channel that I don't think I'd be backing against Haaland in this game week, but if I did, I'd be going for Palmer or Foden, and that kind of made sense. Like, Spurs have not been playing that great, and to see Son blank, I know it's disappointing, especially when I could have considered potentially triple captaining Son with fixtures like these, but Spurs' form has just been so poor, it was not even a consideration for more than 30 seconds for me, so it's not surprising to see Son blank like this, but it's very disappointing. Fortunately for me, I did have somebody like Maddison on the bench who picked up a 6-pointer, and I know there's going to be some people out there saying, hey, how come you have Maddison on the bench and you started Bukayo Saka and he has a single game week? Well, listen, bro, I wasn't sure about Maddison's expected minutes, and I genuinely expected Saka to get a massive haul against Man United. Moving on to my attack, I have Nicholas Jackson as well as Alexander Isak, who were okay, but slightly underwhelming, especially in a double game week. I expected 10 plus points from both of those players, but I'll take a 7 and a 4. Like, that's okay, especially given how high the effective ownership was for those two. And I think the people that went differential, players like Højlund or even Joao Pedro, there were a lot of doubts surrounding both of those players, and they kind of got you some sort of points. So even if you went differential in your striker position, those options actually delivered as well. And of course, if you went against Haaland for captaincy, you most likely didn't return more points than what he got this week. That's why I was so sure about captaining him in Game Week 37. Let's move on to my bench boost in particular. So I got a 5-pointer from Raya. Of course, they kept a clean sheet against a very rotated Manchester United team. Maddison ends up with a 6-pointer, picking up 1 assist and both starts in the double game week. Dan Burn blanks in both games. I didn't bring Dan Burn in for his points in the double. I brought him in for his potential points in Burnley and Sheffield in the weeks before, and he disappointed once again, just like he's done for the last couple weeks. And he had a shot that was a header that was cleared off the line from, I think, Casemiro, but that's how the cookie crumbles really in FPL. It was so close to a differential haul. I'm not sure how high his effective ownership is. I think it was around 50 or 60%. It could have helped, but it is what it is, man. It's fine. I understand, especially given the fact that I doubled up on Everton defense with Tarkowski, and Tarkowski got the clean sheet and got me some bonus, which is really surprising. Usually he's the one that picks up 5 points when everyone else is picking up 6s, but I'm really happy that I brought Tarkowski. You know what? He's been due for a goal. I've owned him for around 6, 7, 8, 10 weeks now, and he hasn't gotten me that goal, and he's been due. He gets on his head on every single set piece. I knew something was coming at some point. I was really hoping to cash in on the underlying XG, but it didn't come this season, and I'm hoping that maybe next season I'll be able to get there. But overall, I got 23 points for my bench boost, and I think that's a very solid score. Whenever I'm looking to compare myself, I look at how I did in previous seasons. I got 17 points last year, I got 23 points the year before that, and so to pick up another 23 points, it's solid. The way that I would grade it is kind of like if you get 4 points from 4 players, that's 16 points, that's solid. If you get 20 points, that's good. If you get 25 plus, that's amazing. So to have 23, that's a very good score, and I'm very content with that. Let's start discussing Game Week 38. Are you chasing down a gap in your mini league or trying to chase down a gap in terms of your overall rank goals? Well, I think there are a lot of players that are doing so, and I think you'll find yourself in 2 buckets. You'll either be in the rank consolidation mode or you'll be in the rank chasing mode. And I think it's important to understand which bucket you fall into and to act accordingly to maximize the points from your perspective as well as the risk. So if you're in rank consolidation mode, that means you've already reached the top of your mini league, or you've already reached your overall rank goals you set out at the beginning of the season. I think the best way to play it from here is just to identify the players that have high effective ownership that you don't own and transfer them in, whether that's within your mini league or within the actual FPL template in terms of reaching your overall goals. Then I would suggest to not punt on the captain and just captain Holland. And the last thing I'd want to say is that if there's a 50-50 decision, just start the option that has higher effective ownership so that way it doesn't damage you as much. And one thing to always still keep in mind is that if you're consolidating, there's no need to take hits. As long as you have Holland in your team, just don't stress about some other weaknesses that you have, as long as you have some playing players, especially defenders, because defenders usually don't score that many points in game week 38. If you are in rank chasing mode, you're going to be in the same mode as me. So we're going to be having a lot of similar thought processes. What I would do in this position is identify the teams that have high goal scoring odds going into game week 38 and select attacking options from those teams that have low effective ownership. I'll give you some examples when we move on to the next couple slides and we'll go through that. I think I'd also want to say that if you have the option to remove some high effective ownership players, whether that's through transfers or being able to bench some high EO players, I would do it in order to bring in some differentials to help you climb the ranks. Lastly, I want to mention that it depends how many points you need to make up, but you should definitely consider somebody like Mo Salah and Trent Alexander-Arnold. This is Klopp's swan song. This is his last home game at Anfield. I'm expecting Liverpool to go out there and put on a show, probably pick up 5 goals. Do you remember last season? Arsenal had nothing to play for on the final day, and they scored 5 goals. I think it was like Xhaka's last game, and he picked up 3 goals, something crazy like that. Saka scored as well. And I think that'll be similar to the way that Liverpool go about it. There's no pressure on them. I'm expecting them to put up at least 3 or 4 goals. We'll look at the underlying stats, and that kind of backs up what my hunch is telling me. And I think if I was looking to go rogue, I would genuinely consider Salah as my number 1 differential captaincy option. And that's why I think if you are looking to chase rank, taking a hit for Mo Salah is fine as long as you also put the captaincy armband on him, and you got to just hope for the best. But just understand you're not going to be optimal. One thing I did want to touch on is you really have to understand how big is the gap between you and your goals. Are you looking to make up a 0 to 10 point gap? If it's that small, then I would suggest just making a differential transfer and then just captaining Holland. But then if you're looking to make up a gap of 10 to 15 points, it really just depends on how many differentials you have within your team. If you have 4+ differentials, then I would say just make a differential transfer and then captain Holland. But if you have less than 3 differentials within your team, then I would say bring in a differential transfer and also captain a differential. And we'll go through some options in the next slide. Lastly, if you're looking to make up a 15+ point gap, then I would suggest a differential transfer and a differential captain. So let's move on to some of the options that I'm going to be thinking about going into game week 38. I just want to say a special thank you to Rob T FPL for producing these graphics on a weekly basis. Thank you so much for these visual representations. It really helps me get a better understanding and it helps me attack the game weeks every single week. So shout out to Rob T FPL. Thank you. After analyzing this graphic in particular, I have come up with several pieces of advice that I wanted to share with my FPL community. So the first thing is that if you're looking to bring in a defender, I will be prioritizing it in terms of just prioritizing an Arsenal defender, then a Man City one, then a Liverpool one, and then a Spurs one. However, I do feel like Trent's attacking upside makes him the number 1 differential option to be going for, and that's kind of why he's the most expensive from an FPL perspective. If I had to prioritize the defenders that I would be bringing in, I would prioritize it in this list of Trent, then Ben White, then Joshua Gvardiol, then Gabriel, and then Pedro Porro. The question you're probably asking is, why is Gabriel so much lower? Well, when I'm looking at this matchup for Arsenal versus Everton, I just trust Everton defensively, and they're very strong from defending and attacking set pieces, so I don't expect Gabriel to be getting an attacking return. I know he did get one on the final day last year, but I just don't think that would happen this year, especially given the opponent that they're coming against. And because of that, that's why he's lower on the list, because I think you're just banking on the potential clean sheet. However, I do just trust Arsenal to keep a clean sheet in general. I don't trust Everton going forward, so that's the reason that I would prioritize those defenders in that order. Now, if you're looking to bring in a differential attacker, I would be prioritizing it like this. Number 1 would be Mo Salah, then I would have Kevin De Bruyne, then I'd be going for Luis Diaz, then Cody Gakpo, then James Maddison, then Brennan Johnson, and then Christopher Nkunku. I'm just organizing it from the way that I'm expecting the teams to have the highest expected goals to the lowest expected goals, as well as the quality of player and if they have penalties or not. And that's kind of the way that I organized it. If you're looking to go for a differential captain, I think Haaland is the obvious number one choice. Given the fact he's going to have high effective ownership, you're going to have high risk going against him, but that doesn't mean he's the runaway option. I do feel that Salah is maybe 5% slightly less optimal than Haaland, but I do feel like given that it's Klopp's last game, I think you can definitely see a narrative where Salah outscores Haaland and it wouldn't surprise you at all. Let me just give you an example. This is some data provided by Benji FPL. Shout out to my bro, follow him on Twitter. But Salah on the final day for the last couple seasons has gotten 1 assist, then he got 1 goal and also 1 assist. So he's consistently giving you 1 return, and that's kind of not that explosive enough, especially for me to take on the risk to go against Haaland. However, given the fact that this is Klopp's last game, it could be the catalyst to just give Salah more explosivity. And that's why I think Salah is the number one differential captaincy option. And if you're going against Haaland, that's where I'd be 100%. If you're going for Son or Saka or Palmer, I just feel like you risk just not outscoring Haaland in general. And my number 6 wildcard option, and I know this is super rogue, but this is the player that I genuinely considered captaining because I can't afford a Trent. I can't afford a Mo without taking a hit. And that's why I didn't consider bringing them into my team personally. However, I am going to be bringing in this one player into my team. This player that I think will be the highest scoring defender in this game week is Ben White. It's just very obvious. I want to be owning the right-hand side of Arsenal. I have Bukayo Saka in my team, and I think that the positions that Ben White will be taking up in this fixture will be really strong. And I just think we saw what he did in the double game week where he picked up 26 points in the double, and I just feel like White has this crazy attacking upside that most defenders don't really have access to, especially given the fact that his floor is so high because that clean sheet is so locked against Everton. And I know in previous seasons, Everton have won this game 1-0, but this is a very different Arsenal team. I trust them to keep the clean sheet 100%. It's just about the amount of goals that I'm expecting them to score, and I don't think they will score that many. So I think Ben White will pick up a lot of attacking positions. He'll be creating some chances, and there's a chance he'll get himself on the bonus. In fact, I do feel like he has a chance to pick up an attacking return because of the incredible positions he gets himself into. That's why he is my transfer in this week, and I'm going to be starting him. And I think the key question for me just comes down to captaincy. Now, when I'm looking at my overall rank goals, I'm currently sitting at 175k, and my goal at the beginning of the season was to be in the top 100k, and that does feel like something that's floating along the horizon, and it feels like it's kind of gone now. So I've kind of made peace in my mind mentally of not being in the top 100k, and that's okay. So the one thing that I am motivated to try to win is going to be my mini league. I'm looking at my bros. This is like all of us that we play football together. We usually banter each other, and my bro Khalid is in first place by 11 points. So he's 11 points ahead of me, and if you can see the team on the left, that's my team. The team on the right is his team, and my team has actually made my transfer. However, for his team, I'm not even sure he can even make a good transfer to make his team better, really, because he doesn't have any money in the bank, but of course he has his one free transfer. So if I'm just comparing my team to his team in particular, the question is, do I feel like my differentials can make up 11 points without having to switch the captaincy off of Haaland, who I do feel like is the best option, especially given the fact that I can't get to Salah? Do I trust my differentials to get me enough points? And that's the thing I really want to consider. So when I'm looking at Ben White and Pedro Porro versus Gabriel and Romero, I do feel like combining those two, I think there's a chance I can outscore his options by 5 points. Then when I'm looking at my midfield options of Bukayo Saka and James Maddison, Saka on penalties, James Maddison playing against the worst team in the league, versus Anthony Gordon as well as Nicholas Jackson, I do feel like I can make up 5 points from there as well. And because of that, I just posted this question on Twitter just to see if Twitter was kind of agreeing with me, and they actually thought it's very similar to me, which is like, it's kind of a 50-50 decision, but slightly leaning more so towards just captaining Haaland. And that's exactly what I'm going to be doing going into the final day. That is my team locked in. I decided to make my transfer early. There's no chance Ben White's going to be benched, and I'm very comfortable with my 8th attacker, Alexander Isak, if he's called upon, no problem. If you stayed to this portion of the video, you are a real one. Thank you so much for all your support over the course of the season. It's been a wild ride. And I'm hoping that next season we can all improve as FPL managers together and get better ranks. And so, you know what? If I provided some value to you over the course of this video, over the course of this season, please just do me a favor and drop something in the comment section down below or hit that subscribe button. It really does mean the world to me. Wishing you all a green arrow going into Game Week 38, and I'm hoping to see you guys soon. Take care. Peace.